Hey everybody, Nick Blazer here with another position analysis video. Today we have a cube action that came up in just a practice match I played recently. I made a decent sized mistake on this one, definitely not the worst cube mistake I've made, but I want to talk about how to approach these kind of middle game positions and how we might figure these out, some tools, and kind of seeing the future that's required for cube action in these positions. But before we get to that, just a reminder: go check out my website for where I'll be doing commentary and kind of where you can watch live streams, things like that. I teach lessons too. I have information about that there. And please do subscribe to the channel and like these videos if you enjoy them. I'm making some progress there and really excited about that. But okay, so let's start by looking at the analysis. Hopefully you have your guess ready about whether this is a double or not, a take or not. Maybe it's too good. Maybe there's a lot of gammons. Maybe you can take a second to try to guess how often each side wins this game and how many gammons are in play to support your numbers, This can be, I find actually, like I don't find myself memorizing number of wins and number of gammons and always estimating that over the board. But if we look closely at that whenever we encounter a cube decision and start to get a feel for what those numbers are like in different positions and how that adds up to a take or pass in different positions, it can kind of keep us honest about some of our decisions. Like here, if you think this is not a double, but you estimate like the wins and gammons high enough that sort of clearly it is, well, maybe that'll make you second guess it. Or if you think this is take, but then you estimate the wins at like 70% and gammons at 30% or something like this, maybe you rethink that and think, oh, do I really, maybe I'm not actually winning this enough, Or if you think it's too good, right? Maybe you got to think about, well, how often do I really think I'm winning this? Does black have decent chances? And if you can come up with an estimate that's like, I don't know, it's probably in like compare that to other too good positions, oftentimes it's hard to be too good when we're winning less than like 75% of the time or something like that. I don't know. That's not a great rule of thumb, but just helping you kind of think about how you might kind of use those numbers as reference points to keep yourself honest over the board. But okay, without further ado, here it is, the answer. It is a take. That's the part that fooled me. My opponent doubled me in this position, and I tend to take deep if you haven't noticed, and I'm trying to just like learn a lesson from that. And so I looked at kind of a risky position and let this one go, and I had a feel about it, but I thought it'd be still interesting to, it's not the biggest area I've seen either. It showed up as much higher on plus than like lower analysis levels. Let's actually see if we can get it to do that. Yeah, so it shows up as like a 162 pass on 4-ply, for example, or a 91 on here, but it goes down with plus plus. Maybe it would go down even further with the rollout or something like this. These are the kind, when you see big discrepancies in the different levels of analysis, that's a good indication that it might be worth analyzing the position a little bit deeper. That XG might be running into something with its understanding of the position. But anyway, so now that we know this is a take, how would we find a take in a position like this over the board? Well, I'm going to talk about a bunch of different scenarios about how this can go, but a huge indicator in a position like this is that our opponent, the doubler, has 3 checkers back behind really good structure in this 4'. So in most scenarios, this is going to create a lot of play and a lot of time for us to win one or the other. It's going to weaken their blitz potential and things like that. So that's a pretty big signal. We have really good offensive structure. We have quite a bit of our opponent's checkers locked up behind that, and so often good enough to play. And we can kind of test that by, what if they only had 2 back here, So now they have a bunch more timing, and they have less checkers locked up back there. Now it's a pretty monster pass. And we can see the wins go up pretty dramatically, almost 7% there. Gammons going up some too. But it's a big deal to have that 3rd checker back there. Might not seem immediately intuitive why that is, but this is one of those rules of thumb that we can kind of use to find something in a position like this. But the other way maybe we can see this is that there's a lot of pressure on the next sequence here too, and a lot of different scenarios where we can get into a decent game. So what I'm talking about is there's a couple rolls that just miss. Not too many of them, but like a 4-2, for example, is just going to play 12 to 6 into here. And then if we enter and anchor up, this is one possible scenario, right? Maybe it doesn't happen a ton of the time, but when this happens, what do you think's going on here? Are we even underdogs anymore? We're doing pretty well in this game. So if we can get that anchor, we're fine. That's a good thing to check out, and that has a lot to do with the three checkers back. Maybe we're in a little bit more difficult position when our opponent has one of those checkers escaped and less cracking risk. But yeah, that's one scenario that we can look at. I mean, another one, of course, from the original position is what if our opponent hits, of course. Let's say they get something sort of normal like a 3-2 or a loose 5, like a 5-4 or something. We'll just go in the middle there. Actually, let's give them a 5-4 for fun. I'm not sure if that's better or worse. Well, now a third of the time we're going to hit. And if we do that, let's say we just hit and don't enter the other checker. Now we must be doing really well in this game, right? Yeah, we're like close to 50-50 in this one too. So this is like probably one of the most common scenarios, right? Our opponent tries to hit us loose to prevent us from making that anchor that would even us out. And either we hit back or we don't. When we don't hit back, of course, if we just fan on this, then our opponent's doing pretty well. We still have some winning chances, but we can, it might be higher than you think, right? We're still over 20 in this scenario. And so our opponent is like too good to double now. But because of these three checkers back and because of all the timing that we wasted here, there are some scenarios where our opponent's going to crash or have trouble escaping this prime. And we might still be able to make an ace point anchor and salvage a little bit there. So there's some other things that can go on there. But yeah, I guess maybe the main theme of this position that allows us to take is that it's not quite lights out yet. And it's interesting how big of a difference it makes when our opponent just has the freedom and isn't stuck behind this structure instead too. So maybe something like this, by the way, would be even more work and a very clear double, right? Now we can definitely see our opponent could have trouble getting up to the anchor and then hopping out. It's not as simple as just a bunch of 6s and 5s. So yeah, I guess the takeaway from this position, be careful the reason that you should tend toward a pass in the original, or a reason to, is that, we should be able to feel in this position that there's going to be a high number of gammons when this works out. That white has a lot of material to close out these black checkers, and when they succeed in their plan, it's going to be a tough game for black. So this threat must be high. But we can find the take if we can also realize how high the wins are still for black here. And those all come mainly from having three checkers behind structure. So when we have offense of our own in a situation like this, that changes the wins dynamic quite a bit and gives us kind of big hopes. And probably, I think if we look at dice distribution here, I don't think this will show up on the screen, but the worst roll after a double and a take for black for white is actually a 4-4. And again, this just like highlights the priming threat here, right? Is that if somehow immediately white rolls a roll like that, they're under a lot of pressure to escape all these checkers before they run out of time. So we've still got some offense, right? I think that's kind of the secret to this one. I hope that helps you in thinking about your cube actions, and I'll be back with more position analysis videos soon. Thanks. Bye, everybody.